The Ferdinand self-propelled guns occupy a special place in the history of German armored vehicles. There are so many myths about their creation and battle engagement that these machines are no doubt legendary. They also had just as legendary a predecessor, the Porsche Tiger. By the way, many made-up stories and misconceptions accumulated around the wartime activities of the Porsche company. You can often hear that the SPG was actually the idea of Ferdinand Porsche himself. They'd say Porsche was making his Tiger for a competition but lost to Henschel and decided to use the hulls for the SPGs. In fact, Porsche was only a design bureau back in those years, nothing else. Both Tigers were made according to official contracts, with Steyr factories assembling both Porsche Tiger and Ferdinand machines. No independent action was allowed in producing vehicles, of course. Due to urgency, the Germans put the Tigers into production with no preliminary testing, right off the blueprints. No wonder the first tanks had heaps of issues and assembly plans were shattered. The Porsche Tiger was the most notable issue producer. It had a new unique suspension, new air-cooled engines, and an electric transmission. Unlike other German tanks, it had rear-leading wheels, while pneumatic brakes were in the front. No one had any idea about their real-world performance. And soon, the number of issues became so overwhelming they had to stop the assembly lines for Porsche Tigers. What could they do next? They could try to polish both Tigers, but didn't they have enough issues with just one? On the other hand, discarding an entire project would be a shame with so much time and effort spent. So the Germans found a compromise. The Henschel Tiger would be mass-produced, while the Porsche Tiger designs would be used to create a self-propelled gun. It was still a complicated task that required new solutions, but Porsche engineers weren't new to bold experiments. The first thing they had to solve was the layout. The new, more powerful cannon had such a long barrel that they couldn't simply replace the turret with a casemate. The German army already had SPGs with a casemate in the rear and engines right below it. It made repairs difficult even with open-top compartment vehicles, so they had to find another solution for the Ferdinand. So the engines and the generators were placed in the center. Now only the casemate had to be removed to access the electric drives. The suspension units were outside so they could be replaced in the field, while the road wheels didn't overlap. The engineers were worried about their brainchild. They didn't have enough time to polish the Porsche Tiger, and yet they had more issues to work on. Could a 65-ton SPG be reliable? How do you tow and repair it? How would the electric transmission perform in battle? The Ferdinand's first actual combat went off the plan. Originally, they had to follow the infantry and lighter vehicles, providing covering fire. But during the Battle of Kursk, the Ferdinands found themselves in the front, and in a minefield. No wonder so many of them became immobilized. Moreover, the summer of 1943 was hot and dry, leading to dust clogs and overheating in the engines. Still, this machine was theoretically the best in the world in terms of armor and firepower at the time. By winter, they'd gained enough experience in employing the Ferdinands, so in December of 1943, the remaining machines were sent to Austria for a major overhaul. The SPGs received commander's cupolas, machine guns for the radio operator, and a new toolbox in the rear. A month before the overhaul, the Ferdinands were renamed into Elefants, which led many to mistakenly believe that the Elefants were improved Ferdinands. In fact, both names were used in parallel. After the overhaul, the Elefants were sent to Italy, where they demonstrated notable performance. They say there was a battle where 2 Elefants fought around 50 American tanks for 10 hours and damaged roughly 30 of them. It's hard to say how much truth there is to it, but there's no doubt that they might well have pulled it off with their armor and firepower. Later, some of the Elefants were brought back to the Eastern Front, where they remained until the end of the war. The Porsche engineers took a great technical risk developing their Tiger, and it certainly paid off. The Ferdinands, based on that Tiger, sustained 2 years of heavy battles and earned their fame as fearsome machines.